Good morning, everyone. It is April the 7th, 2016, and time to kick off another trading day. Not much news anywhere in the world overnight. Not much news on tap for this morning. That usually yields a trading range. I think the biggest influence on our market this morning will be the direction of the E-mini, which is pointed lower. And the E-mini is probably going to be impacted by crude, so we're probably trading crude in both the E-mini and Treasury markets today. Today's news: jobless claims, 272. Natural gas inventories, +7. B. And another piece of news that might hit: Draghi picks up the mic at 10 Eastern. That could be a factor too, given the lack of news. I doubt if he says anything that change other than he's going to do anything and everything. Probably the biggest news out of Europe last night was Holland, or the Dutch, decided against allowing the Ukraine to join the EU. The EU is coming apart at the seams. This idea, the planners, they all go back, they look at their numbers, and they say, look at our demographics, and we have birth rates of less than 1.6 to as low as 1.2, depending if you're Japan, Italy, etc. The UK, all over. We can't afford our welfare systems without population growth. Our population's not producing. One of the reasons they're not producing is the welfare state. Remember back in the old days when before we had a lot of medicine, you'd see families with 8, 10, 12 kids. Why? Because a good portion of those would die, and you also needed to live with a couple of them when you reached your old age. You bring them in the world, you feed them, you take care of them when they're young. When you're checking out, transitioning out of it, they feed you and take care of you too. That's the way it used to be. Well, the modern welfare state has, we pay for everything, we take care of everything, cradle to grave. You don't have to worry about anything. Well, one of the unforeseen consequences of that is that families are smaller. As you become more materialistic, $1 for me or $1 for a potential kid, I think I'll take that dollar. I can spend it. We'll have kids later on, and then you end up not having kids. So these central planners sitting back and looking at that, unleashing these just absolutely, if you look at a country on a cultural basis, if you let people in your country, you'd like to bring people into your country that have similar backgrounds, similar mores, similar values. That would mean the religion. And if you're looking at a secular humanist approach to life or philosophy, like most of Europe is right now, allowing Muslims or Islam to come in there, whose approach to life is definitely not secular humanist, you got cultural clashes just built right in to it. So central planning once again has struck out big time by allowing this flood of immigrants to come into Europe and the UK, and they are paying the consequences more so than the United States. In fact, some people say it cannot be reversed. We will see over time. So, Draghi, after Holland's refusal to bring in the Ukraine or to them, might actually have something to say today, but I don't think he'll say anything that will support the euro. He will say stuff that wants to raise inflation, maybe. He will say stuff we're going to be doing things to help our markets as best we can. And we want the euro lower so we can export more. So put it all together, not a lot of news, trading range. If the E-mini breaks, treasuries will rally. If the E-mini stays within the range, treasuries will stay in the range. So our first sell had a high yesterday of 31, is 30 to 02. We have a little resistance at 2.5. Then we're going to take 7 to 11 for sell 2. If the E-mini selling, we do not want to be on the short side of the market. On the buy side, London's last rotate down was 23.5. 21.25, fairly aggressive. Would like to get it done at 21. Lean against the value area low. Depending on what the E-mini does, may not be able to get it done right there. Then 13 to 17. E-mini rallies, we don't want to be long treasuries. But you know, when you sit back and you work in the ivory towers and you don't have direct experience with life, I mean, other than fighting and climbing your way politically up to the head of a department, then these grandiose ideas and schemes, you're funded by politicians. A lot of your grants come from them. Politicians need a new idea to sell to somebody. They go to the schools, they get these new theories, they dress them up politically. Sounds good. Couch them in terms of social justice and fairness, and we're going to change things and make it better for everybody. And you know, it's just a downward spiral. It's a centripetal spiral, and the outcome is societal collapse at some point. Now, I'm not saying we're there, but we're certainly on that path. And it happens to all civilizations, and Europe's ahead of us. Okay, looking at the 30-year, the ideal place to be short would be a limit sell against 8. On the buy side, a limit buy against 164.29. And here we are kind of in the middle. So got this letter ledge up here at M. So 3 to 7, sell 1. Put a question mark at the buck. May not get higher than that. And then 15 to 19. Let them get stops above that. Again, if the E-mini is selling and selling with some momentum or velocity to the downside, we don't want to be short, period. On the buy side, we've got 15, 17, 20, 22, 23. We've got volume at 24, so if we can get long below 24, we're in good shape. So 17 to 21 is an area. We'll put a question mark at 21. Make it 13 to 17. Try to pick up this area, the low end of it, but it may take 21s to get in, depending on what the E-mini does. These are our 1 levels for Nancy. These would be our support levels 2, resistance level 2. So trying to accommodate, see if we can get better execution, better trade location because of the volatility in the bond. If our number 1 point hold, then 21 holds, then you know, again, leaning a limit sell against 8 seems to be the best trade structurally that I can see in the 30-year. Basically a trading range today, with an up bias if the E-mini sells. Okay, gold was real strong last night. Didn't see any comments to really explain why gold was as strong as it was. But again, just people like to buy gold. And definitely a buyer below 20 of late. And last night 25 basically held, and it was straight up from then. And you can see on the London split that London took us higher, then we extend the range in Q, and here we are. So 40.42 is sell 1. 45.47 sell 2. Just leaning against present resistance on the buy side. 30.32 buy 1, playing for the breakout down here. 25.27 buy 2. Okay, Draghi does speak at 10. We have the European Central Bank is meeting today. Draghi's comments, 10 Eastern, could impact the market, and that may be the major news piece today. Hard to say given the lack of news. We don't have a lot of news. The market searches for something. So 75 was touched. That's where we wanted to get short last night. 50 to 75, and we're all the way at the bottom end of the range. This market's not predicting good things from Draghi. Last rotate up stopped at 27. We're currently at 85, so 14.10, and a lot can swing on what Draghi says. Sell 1. And then 25 to 35, sell 2. We're at 13.75, so we're pointed lower, and Draghi speaks. We're going to give it a little bit of room, so 13.50, 13.60, buy 1. And buy 2 will be 25 plus or minus. Draghi wants the euro lower, and I don't think he'll say anything that will encourage buying in the euro. Okay, what's crude going to do today? Well, the fundamentals continue to stink, even with the draw at Cushing yesterday on the inventory levels. So 38, 30 and 8 and a quarter held. So I think we're going to try to trade lower today, like the short side, 38, 38 and a quarter, sell 1. Probably leaning against 38. Got this high volume number down here at 96, so 37, 37 and a quarter, buy 1. Buy 2, 25 to 50. And then on the sell side, 38.50, 38.75 for sell 2. What's interesting about all the discussions going into the OPEC talks, the Doha meeting, is, this really is a band of thieves, and it is a game of bettering thyself. They never forget their national self-interest, except for when it comes to computing market share, fighting for market share and what it does to the cost of crude, as opposed to cutting production, maybe 500,000 barrels a day, collectively, and what that would do for the price of crude. These guys, they go blind when they get to market share. Now they're talking about driving our frackers out of the business, but as the cost of crude goes down, wellhead services, the cost of that goes down too. Those people need to eat and have a business too. The Deep Gulf projects are continuing on. These are projects that can bring in 50 to 100,000 barrels per day of production. They are economically viable in the $35 to $40 a barrel range. They haven't quit doing that. It looks like they've figured out in these shale supplies how to produce it, how to get more production out of it, how to bring their costs out, and we've got supposedly 4,000 to 5,000 unfinished wells waiting to come online when the price is right. So supply is going to be an issue for a while, would be my guess. Okay, will the E-mini sell or not? I mean, that's hard to say. If you just come in and look at it structurally, there's your limit sell. Cross this volume in the middle right here. Here's your limit buy down at 40. Now we're currently at 49. We had the D period low yesterday at 35. So 35 to 40, probably reasonable buy zone. So I'm guessing right now maybe 40, 43 buy 1. If crude oil sells today, we don't want any part of the buy side. 35, 37 buy 2. Basically 35 to 40 is where I see support. Got a pretty good chance of holding. Resistance wise, we're at 49, so 54, maybe 57, sell 1, 59, 62, sell 2. We'll see what happens. Right now the market's trying to sell. Like the short side better. And if crude starts to sell, I think the short side will continue to develop for us as the market trades through the day. So the buy side can trade from the long side, would prefer to be short off the bat, see if we can't break and take out 35. It will take a bit for me to get everything up and posted this morning. I didn't find much to write about or to back up the ideas, and that usually so spent too much time looking for news articles. Be with you as soon as possible.